Adapted from Ichiro Oda's manga, the Summit War Saga covers Luffy's journey in Sabaody, into Amazon Lily, to Impel Down, and finally to Marineford, where he fights through impossible odds to save his brother, Ace. It is one of the most important sagas in the entire series, revealing major truths about Ace, Luffy's family, the balance of power in the world, and the terrifying scale of what happens when the old era begins to fall apart. In the anime, the Summit War Saga ran from 2009 to 2011 in Japan and spans a total of 129 episodes. So let's get into the story. Sabaody Archipelago. After leaving Thriller Bark, the Straw Hats sailed toward the spot their log pose had been guiding them since Water 7, and finally reached the halfway point of the Grand Line, only to find the Red Line blocking their path to Fishman Island and the New World. Since the pose pointed downward, Luffy, Robin, and Brook searched underwater and the sharks submerged, but instead of finding the island, they were chased back up by a giant sea king. When Luffy punched it, the creature spat out a mermaid named Kami and her talking starfish friend. Kami explained that her friend, Hachan, had been captured by kidnappers planning to sell him, and the Straw Hats agreed to help. That led them into a clash with the Flying Fish Riders and their mass leader, Duval, who blamed Sanji for ruining his life because his real face looked exactly like Sanji's awful wanted poster. After a chaotic battle at sea, Sanji beat Duval badly enough to accidentally make him handsome, ending the grudge and turning Duval into an ally. Yo, this show is hilarious. Honestly, people sleep on One Piece. Well, okay, nobody sleeps on One Piece, but all of the One Piece haters out there, you need to tap in for real. The crew then shared takoyaki with Hachan and learned they would need their ship coated at Sabaody Archipelago in order to descend to Fishman Island. At Sabaody, the crew discovered a beautiful but cruel island ruled in practice by fear, slavery, and the world nobles. Hachan warned them never to oppose a noble, because doing so would bring down an admiral. They soon saw why when they witnessed Saint Charlos casually abuse and shoot people. Not long after, Kami is kidnapped. After she's kidnapped and taken to the human auction house, the situation turns much darker. The Straw Hats rush to Grove 1, hoping to save her without causing a scene, because they know attacking a world noble would bring disaster down on all of them. Inside, Kami is treated like merchandise, locked in a fishbowl with an explosive collar around her neck, while the auctioneer Disco hypes her up as the main attraction. Nami prepares to buy her freedom, but St. Charlos immediately crushes that hope by placing a massive bid and claiming her for himself. Then Luffy suddenly crashes into the auction house, with Zoro arriving too, and the tension explodes. When Hachan tries to stop Luffy, his identity as a fishman is exposed, and the crowd reacts with instant fear and disgust. Charlos then shoots him right in front of everyone. Even while wounded, he begs Luffy not to strike back, knowing exactly what will happen if he attacks a world noble. But after watching his friend get shot and humiliated, Luffy finally snaps and delivers the punch that shocks the entire island. That single punch throws the auction house into total chaos. Guards swarm in, nobles panic, and the audience runs for their lives. The Straw Hats stop pretending they can escape quietly and move to save Kami by force. In the middle of the madness, Silver's Rayleigh suddenly appears, revealing himself as the mysterious captive from earlier. With overwhelming calm, he knocks out the guards and removes Kami's explosive collar so easily that it stuns everyone watching. Anyone that's further ahead, you know exactly what was going on, but I'm not trying to spoil it for everybody just yet. Shout out to the greatest writer in anime. Outside, the consequences of Luffy's actions spread instantly across Sabaody. Sengoku is informed, the Marines mobilize, and Admiral Kizaru sets out to handle the incident himself. At the same time, Doflamingo is contacted, but he shows no concern for the collapsing slave trade operation and leaves the mess behind, while the larger threat of Ace's soon-to-be execution is announced. As Ace is the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard pirates, they are essentially declaring war with Whitebeard. Meanwhile, once the Marines surround the building, escape turns into open war, as Luffy is aided by the Supernovas, Kid, and Trafalgar Law, members of the worst generation, aka the Super Rookies, 11 rookie pirates with bounties exceeding 100 million berries, who have all arrived at Sabaody Archipelago around the same time, posing the greatest threat to the balance of the world order in One Piece. Kid, Law, and Luffy briefly fight on the same side, and the three captains tear through the Marines in a display that proves why they are the most dangerous rookies on the island. Afterward, the Straw Hats regroup with Rayleigh, who reveals the truth about Roger. Rayleigh was Roger's first mate, the king of the pirates' right hand. Roger conquered the Grand Line while terminally ill, however, and disbanded his crew, then turned himself in, using his death to launch the Great Age of Pirates. Rayleigh then agrees to coat the Sunny, and for a moment, it feels like the crew may finally have a path forward. But things become a complete nightmare. Marine Admiral Kizaru arrives and begins crushing pirates with terrifying ease. Around the island, the supernovas are pushed to their limits, while the Straw Hats discover that the Kuma they are fighting is actually a pacifista, one of several nearly unstoppable cyborg weapons. Even after barely defeating one, they are in no condition to keep fighting. Then, Sentomaru arrives with another pacifista. Kizaru personally targets them, and Rayleigh has to step in just to help keep Zoro alive. Finally, the real Kuma appears, and the arc turns tragic. One by one, the Straw Hats are made to disappear. Zoro, Brook, Usopp, Sanji, Frankie, Nami, Robin, and Chopper, until Luffy is left alone, helplessly watching his crew vanish in front of him, until eventually he is blasted away himself, and what began as a rescue mission ends as the Straw Hats' most devastating defeat yet. Amazon Lily. After Luffy is sent flying by Kuma and lands on a strange island after days in the air, injured and alone, he tries to recover, hunts food, and accidentally covers himself in poisonous mushrooms. He is found unconscious by Marguerite, Sweet Pea, and Aphilandra, who bring him back to their village and remove the mushrooms, only to discover in shock that he is a man. The island that they're on is called Amazon Lily, homeland of the Kuja, a nation of female warriors where men are forbidden. Luffy is locked up, but his stretching powers and strange behavior leave the woman fascinated as much as frightened. When they decide he must be killed, he escapes into the jungle with Marguerite, who returns the life card he received from Silver's Rayleigh, which would help him find him later, and explains the island's isolation in the calm belt, along with the strength of their ruler, Boa Hancock. Luffy tries to build a raft and leave, fails instantly, and then learns the Kuja can use haki through their arrows, a mysterious power that Luffy has claimed to never heard of before. But for all of you dedicated fans out there, you know that haki has been shown in this anime time and time again before we even got to this point. If you're confused or don't believe me, look it up. This video is not a haki explanation, but you gonna find out a little bit sooner. Elsewhere, at sea, Hancock refuses the government's summons despite Ace's coming execution, turns Marines to stone using her devil fruit powers, and returns home to a hero's welcome. Back on the island, the Kuja speak of the Gorgon curse, said to rest on Hancock and her sister's backs. Luffy accidentally crashes into Hancock's bath, sees the mark on her back, and is captured. Set for execution and thrown into an arena, Hancock punishes Marguerite and her friends by turning them to stone, then orders Luffy's execution. He defeats and battles Hancock's sisters, Marigold and Sandersonia, and during the fight, he unleashes a powerful wave, unbeknownst to him, of Conqueror's haki, and more importantly, protects Sandersonia's exposed back from the crowd. That selfless act changes Hancock's view of him. Hancock finally reveals the truth. She and her sisters were once slaves of the Celestial Dragons, and the so-called cursed is really a slave brand. Luffy says he hates not her, but the world nobles. When he learns Ace is about to be executed, he gives up reuniting with his crew for now and chooses to save his brother instead. Hancock, now in love with him, agrees to help him reach Impel Down, while elsewhere, the other Straw Hats are scattered across strange islands of their own. Impel Down. With Ace locked away in level 6 of Impel Down and only hours remaining before his execution, Luffy infiltrated the underwater prison by hiding beneath Boa Hancock's robe as she entered under her warlord privileges. Once inside, Hancock secretly helped him slip away during her inspection, allowing him to begin a desperate solo mission to find Ace before it was too late. At the same time, Ace spoke with Garp in his cell, making it painfully clear that he rejected Roger as a father and saw Whitebeard as his only true one. Luffy's search through the prison quickly turned into chaos. On level 1, he ran into Buggy, who had escaped his cell and immediately decided that teaming up with Luffy was the best way to survive. Buggy tried to bargain and lie his way through the prison, but after the two crashed into level 2, they were joined by Mr. 3, who also saw Luffy's break-in as his chance to escape. The deeper they went, the more horrifying the prison became. From the blade-filled Crimson Hell to the monster-packed Beast Hell and the scorching Starvation Hell. Along the way, the prison finally realized Luffy's true goal. He had broken into Impel Down to save Ace. As Hancock met Ace and secretly delivered the news that Luffy had come for him, Luffy found a powerful new ally on level 3, Bon Clay. Overjoyed to see Luffy again, Bon immediately chose friendship over safety and joined the rescue mission. Together with Buggy and Mr. 3, they pushed into level 4, defeating Minotaurus and pressing on even as Ace begged from below for Luffy not to come any further. Outside the prison, the wider world was already shaking, with Kaido moving against Whitebeard and Shanks intercepting him, while Marineford prepared for war. In blazing hell, Luffy finally ran into Magellan, the monstrous chief warden whose poison powers made him almost untouchable. Even after hearing the danger, Luffy refused to back down because revealing how he entered the prison would endanger Hancock. He launched himself at Magellan anyway, sacrificing his own body just to land blows. But Magellan's poison overwhelmed him completely. Luffy was defeated, drenched in multiple deadly toxins, and sentenced to die in level 5's freezing wasteland. That was where Bon Clay's loyalty truly shined. Refusing to abandon Luffy, Bon disguised himself, outwitted the prison staff, searched desperately for a cure, and when none existed, dragged Luffy through the frozen hell toward the only miracle he could think of, Emporio Ivankov. Bon fought through wolves, cold, and exhaustion simply because Luffy was his friend. Their gamble paid off when they were rescued and taken to New Kama Land, a hidden paradise inside Impel Down ruled by Ivankov. There, while Bon and the others cheered him on without rest, Luffy endured brutal hormone treatment that consumed years of his life. Against all odds, he survived in less than a day, rose back to his feet, and prepared to continue the rescue of Ace. Marineford. As Ace stood on the execution platform at Marineford, the entire world watched and argued over whether Whitebeard would really come for him. The Marines had prepared for the worst. 100,000 elite soldiers, 50 battleships, the 3 admirals, the remaining warlords, and the fleet admiral of the Marines, Sengoku the Buddha. Sengoku made the war even more heavy by revealing the truth to the world. Ace was not just Whitebeard's 2nd Division commander, but was the son of the legendary pirate king, Gol D. Roger. He explained how Ace's mother, Porteous D. Rouge, had carried him for 20 months to keep him hidden from the world government, dying immediately after giving birth. That revelation stunned the world and dragged Garp back into painful memories of Roger entrusting Ace to him before his death. So Garp was in on this shit too. Yo, One Piece has some crazy plot development. All the things you think you know just start shifting and you start connecting the dots afterward. This is an amazing series, like, bro. As the shock spread, Whitebeard finally arrived. Instead of attacking from the front, he coated his ships and surfaced directly beneath Marineford's bay, bringing the Moby Dick and his allied crews right into the heart of the battlefield. Before the battle fully erupted, Ace's past unfolded. How he had formed the Spade Pirates, met Shanks to thank him for saving Luffy, clashed with Jinbei for 5 days, and eventually encountered Whitebeard. Though Ace resisted joining him at first and even tried to kill him numerous times, he eventually came to see Whitebeard as his true father figure. Later, after Blackbeard murdered Thatch, Ace ignored Whitebeard's warning and chased him, the very choice that led to his capture. In the present, Ace begged everyone to leave him, but Whitebeard and his sons refused to abandon him. Whitebeard struck first by cracking the air itself with the power of the Quake fruit, aka the Tremor fruit, sending massive sea quakes across the bay and creating enormous tsunamis. Aokiji froze the waves and then the bay itself, forcing the pirates and marines into direct combat on the ice. Mihawk tested Whitebeard's power, but Jozu intercepted his slash. Kizaru attacked from above only for Marco in his phoenix form to stop him. One of the Marine admirals, Akainu, answered by destroying a giant iceberg with magma. Then, Little Oars Jr. charged forward, determined to save Ace out of love for the man who had once made him a giant straw hat. Even after Kuma blasted him, Doflamingo cut off his leg, and Moria impaled him. Oars Jr. dragged himself forward and opened a path for the pirates before collapsing just short of Ace. Whitebeard, furious but composed, ordered his forces to use that sacrifice to push into the plaza. Meanwhile, Luffy and the Impel Down escapees finally reached Marineford in spectacular fashion. Their ship had been stranded atop one of the frozen tsunami waves, but after overhearing an order to execute Ace ahead of schedule, Ivankov blasted the ship forward, accidentally sending everyone crashing from the sky into the battlefield below. By luck, they landed in one of the few unfrozen patches of sea. Jinbei rescued the Devil Fruit users, and soon Luffy stood atop the wreckage and locked eyes with Ace. The battlefield erupted in disbelief as Crocodile, Ivankov, Buggy, Jinbei, and the escaped prisoners appeared in the middle of the war. Sengoku was furious, Garp was stunned, Hancock relieved, and even the warlords took notice. The war to save Ace then explodes into chaos almost immediately. Jinbei formally renounces his warlord title, Crocodile tries to take Whitebeard's life, and Luffy throws himself in the way to stop him, making it clear that even in the middle of a battlefield full of legends, his only goal is saving his brother. Whitebeard quickly notices the Straw Hat and connects Luffy to Shanks, even recalling that Shanks once said he had placed his missing arm on a bet on the new age of pirates. Luffy, fearless as ever, boldly declares that he will rescue Ace and one day become Pirate King himself, stunning both pirates and Marines. Before charging ahead, he warns Whitebeard that the Marines plan to execute Ace early, but Whitebeard realizes Sengoku leaked that information on purpose to throw the pirates into confusion. Even so, Luffy keeps pushing forward as Ivankov backs him up. Kuma attacks his former ally without hesitation. Hina tries to trap Luffy, and Moria unleashes zombies to slow him down. Ace, horrified to see his younger brother in the middle of such a war, yells at Luffy to stay away, claiming that he would be humiliated if a weakling saved him. Though the truth is, he simply does not want Luffy to die for him. Luffy refuses to listen, shouting that they are brothers and that no pirate code matters more than that. Then the battlefield is rocked again when Sengoku reveals to everyone Luffy was the son of Monkey D. Dragon, the supreme commander and founder of the Revolutionary Army, bent on opposing the world government, and the son of Monkey D. Garp. How's that for family drama? Luffy barely reacts, smashing through Marines with Gear 3 and insisting that he will save Ace even if it kills him, a determination that impresses Whitebeard enough to make him order Marco not to let the boy die. As the war widens, Whitebeard begins directing the battlefield with terrifying insight. He temporarily allies with Buggy and escaped Impel Down prisoners to avoid fighting them, while battling the Marines, ordering his subordinate crews to split left and right, and forces Sengoku and Garp to realize he has seen through their strategy. Jinbei defeats Moria's attempt to power himself up with Stolen Shadows, but Luffy is soon pinned by Smoker until Hancock intervenes with Haki, openly choosing Luffy over the Marines. She then secretly gives Luffy the key to Ace cuffs, and his grateful hug nearly makes her faint with joy. Elsewhere, Ivankov confronts Kuma and learns from Doflamingo the horrifying truth. Kuma has been fully transformed by Vegapunk into PX-0, a mindless weapon of the government. Ivankov is devastated but refuses to back down, deciding to hold Kuma off while sending his followers to support Luffy. Meanwhile, Crocodile cuts through everything in his way and keeps moving toward Whitebeard. Clashing with both Jozu and Doflamingo, while Mihawk personally steps in to test Luffy, Luffy knows he cannot afford a real duel, so he sprints, dodges, improvises, and even shamelessly uses Buggy as a human shield to survive. Marco finally sends Vista to stall Mihawk, and Mihawk realizes something important about Luffy. The boy has an uncanny gift for turning everyone around him into allies, which Mihawk views as the most dangerous power on the sea. Then, Sengoku's true endgame begins. Sentomaru arrives with an army of pacifistas, and the Marines try to box Whitebeard's forces into the bay. Whitebeard's earlier order to split his men suddenly makes perfect sense, because it saves them from total encirclement. The pacifistas begin mowing down pirates with beams from their mouths and hands, while Sengoku pulls the Marines back and prepares for the final phase. Buggy's hijacked broadcast briefly keeps civilians updated, but the real shock comes when Squard suddenly appears before Whitebeard and stabs him straight through the chest. Everyone freezes. Squard, manipulated by Akiinu, believes Whitebeard made a secret deal with the Marines to sacrifice all the subordinate captains in exchange for saving Ace and his own core crew. He also burns with hatred after learning Ace is Roger's son. Yet, Whitebeard does not retaliate. Instead, he embraces Sword like a father, comforting a foolish son, and calmly explains that the Marines preyed on his hatred and fear. To prove his sincerity to everyone else, Whitebeard shatters the frozen sea and gives his subordinates a path to retreat if they choose. Rather than abandon him, they rally harder than ever. Whitebeard accepts that he is an old man with one heart and decides to use what remains of his life to secure the future for the next generation. He charges toward the execution platform, tilts Marineford itself with a colossal quake, defeats giants like John Giant, and forces the Marines to activate giant iron walls and an artillery trap. Akainu rains magma down, destroys the Moby Dick, and turns the enclosed bay into a hellscape of fire, cannon blasts, and boiling sea. Still, Luffy keeps forcing his way forward. Luffy's desperation reaches another level when Oars Jr., thought to be finished, rises again long enough for Jinbei to launch Luffy in a column of water straight over the walls and in front of all three admirals. It is one of the boldest moments in the war, but also one of the clearest reminders that Luffy is still outmatched. Kizaru kicks him aside, Aokiji wounds him, and only intervention from Crocodile, Marco, Hancock, and the Whitebeard pirates keep him alive. Even so, the pirates finally break into the plaza itself. Whitebeard storms in like a natural disaster, clashes head-on with Akainu, and shakes Marineford apart. But the cost is enormous. Marco is cuffed with sea stone and riddled with light attacks by Kizaru. Jozu is frozen and shattered by Aokiji, and Whitebeard's own sickness catches up with him at the worst possible time. As Ace stands on the verge of execution, Luffy, broken and exhausted, begs Ivankov for another shot of hormones, even though it could destroy his body. Ivankov warns him that he is throwing his life away, but Luffy says failing to save Ace would be worse. Revived through sheer stubbornness, he charges again, even knocking out Kobe when the young Marine tries to stop him. When the executioners finally move, Luffy unleashes a tremendous burst of Conqueror's Haki without even understanding what he has done, knocking them out and shocking everyone on the battlefield. Whitebeard immediately orders all forces to support Luffy, effectively betting the future all on him. Pirates who barely knew Luffy moments before now shield him with their lives. Crocodile and Mr. One even interfere to block Mihawk. The whole war narrows to one objective: get Luffy to Ace. At last, Luffy reaches the platform with the key Hancock gave him, but after everything he has endured, can barely stand. Mr. 3 steps in at a crucial moment to help unlock Ace's cuffs, and together, the brothers finally break free. For one brief stretch, the impossible seems to have happened. Ace and Luffy fight side by side, fire and rubber, crashing through the surrounding Marines as Whitebeard's men open a path for them to retreat. Whitebeard, despite being battered, keeps holding back the enemy and even laughs when Ace bows and tearfully calls him a good father. But the Marines still have one last weapon: Akainu's cruelty. He taunts the fleeing pirates, calling Whitebeard a loser from a dead era, and Ace cannot ignore the insult. He turns back, clashes with Akainu, and is overpowered because magma burns hotter than lava. When Akainu then goes after the weakened Luffy, Ace steps in front of his brother and takes the fatal blow through the chest. Ace dies in Luffy's arms, thanking everyone who showed him love. Luffy completely breaks. Whitebeard, shattered by Ace's death, unleashes his full rage and nearly destroys the man and Marineford itself. Then Blackbeard arrives, kills Whitebeard after a brutal confrontation in a sudden twist, and steals his devil fruit power, plunging the battlefield into even greater madness. The war only ends when Kobe finally screams for the fighting to stop and is nearly killed by Akainu for it, only for Shanks to arrive at the last second. Shanks blocks Akainu, declares that Kobe's courage changed the future, and demands an end to the war. With the red-haired pirates now present, even the Marines stop. Law escapes with the unconscious Luffy and Jinbei aboard his submarine, while Buggy returns the straw hat at Shanks' request. The war closes, not with triumph, but with execution, grief, and a world permanently changed by Ace's death. Whitebeard's fall, and the passing of the Summit War of Marineford, known as the greatest war of the Great Age of Pirates. Post-war. After the war ends, the world reacts in wildly different ways. Civilians and Marines celebrate Whitebeard's death, while pirates are electrified by his final declaration that the One Piece is real. But the victory brings no peace. With Whitebeard gone, the balance of the three great powers begins to crumble, and chaos spreads immediately as pirates like Brownbeard attack islands that Whitebeard once protected. At the same time, Hancock tracks Law's submarine, learns that Luffy is alive but in critical condition, and joins up with Ivankov, Jinbei, and the Impel Down escapees. Jinbei is less worried about Luffy's body than what will happen when he wakes up and has to face Ace's death. To keep him safe, they bring Luffy to Amazon Lily. Elsewhere, Sengoku learns that Blackbeard caused a breakout of dangerous level 6 prisoners, but the world government chooses to hide that truth from the public. At Marineford, Gecko Moria is nearly executed by Doflamingo and pacifistas because the government now considers him too weak to remain a warlord. 2 weeks later, the aftermath is still spreading across the seas as new pirates rise everywhere. On Amazon Lily, Luffy wakes up in a frenzy, trying to convince himself Ace's death was only a dream. Law warns that if he keeps rampaging, his wounds will reopen and kill him. Hancock is desperate to see him, but is kept away. Eventually, Luffy calms down enough to remember everything, and Jinbei confirms the truth. Ace is dead. Luffy breaks down completely. This grief shifts the story into a long flashback to Dawn Island, where Garp, young Luffy with Curly Dawn, who was already entrusted with Ace via Garp as well. The two boys hated each other at first, but Luffy kept chasing after Ace no matter how often Ace tried to ditch or nearly kill him. Eventually, Luffy followed Ace into Grey Terminal, where Ace was secretly working with another boy, Sabo, to save money for a pirate ship. After Luffy is captured and tortured by pirates, he refuses to betray Ace and Sabo, proving how badly he wants connection and how terrified he is of being alone. That loyalty leads Ace and Sabo to save him, and from then on, the three begin living, training, and surviving together like brothers. The flashback deepens when Sabo reveals he is actually a runaway noble from the Goa Kingdom, who hates the cruelty and emptiness of his class. Ace, Sabo, and Luffy seal their bond by sharing sake cups and swearing brotherhood. But their happiness is shattered when Sabo is dragged back home, and the nobles secretly arrange for Grey Terminal to be burned down to impress an incoming celestial dragon. Ace and Luffy are caught in the fire and nearly killed, while Sabo escapes his home, witnesses the truth of the massacre, and encounters Dragon. Dawn and the bandits rescue Ace and Luffy from Blue Jam, and Dragon's revolutionaries save many of the people trapped in the flames. Soon after, Sabo tries to flee the kingdom by sea, only for a celestial dragon to casually blow up his boat. Believing Sabo dead, Ace and Luffy are devastated. Sabo's letter later reaches them, asking Ace to take care of Luffy. In response, the two promise to grow stronger, become pirates, and chase true freedom. The story then shows the years passing. Ace leaves first at 17, thanking Dawn before setting sail, and Luffy follows 3 years later, finally strong enough to depart on his own journey. The story finally returns to the present, where Luffy is still crushed by grief and says for the first time that he is too weak to become Pirate King. Back in East Blue, Dawn attacks Garp in rage and sorrow, insisting that the one suffering most is Luffy. In the New World, Shanks and Marco hold a funeral for Ace and Whitebeard. Jinbei then forces Luffy to stop drowning in guilt and asks him what he still has left. Through his tears, Luffy realizes the answer: his crew. That realization gives him something to live and fight for again. Just then, Rayleigh arrives on Amazon Lily, setting the stage for Luffy's next step forward. With the Straw Hats scattered across the world, each of them reacts to the news of Luffy and Ace in a different way. Meanwhile, at Sabaody, Duval and the Rosy Life Riders continue guarding the Thousand Sunny, while Shaky believes Rayleigh has already reached Luffy. Around the world, others connected to the Straw Hats react too. Vivi, Cobra, and Karu worry, Crocodile decides to head back to the New World, and Buggy receives a shocking message from the government. Elsewhere, the Five Elders, a council of the 5 highest-ranking celestial dragons, collectively titled the highest authorities of the world government, discuss Blackbeard, the vacant warlord seats, and the meaning of the D, which, if you haven't noticed, Monkey D Luffy, Gold D Roger, D Garp, D Dragon, there's something called the Will of D going on. We gonna tap into that later. Sengoku then resigns and Garp steps down while Smoker requests a transfer to the New World, and Kobe is told that he has awakened Haki. The Marines then reveal that Luffy has caused a stir as he returned to Marineford with Jinbei and Rayleigh, circled the island, rang the Ox bell 16 times, laid flowers, and prayed. To the public, it looks like mourning, but to the Marines, it signals the end of one era and the beginning of another. That message spreads across the seas. Kid sees it as a challenge, while Hawkins, Drake, Appu, Law, and Blackbeard all begin making moves of their own. On Amazon Lily, the real meaning becomes clear. Luffy had 3D on his arm crossed out with 2Y next to it, which means the crew should not reunite in 3 days, but in 2 years. Luffy deliberately drew attention to himself so his crew would understand they were too weak for the New World and needed time to grow. Chopper studies medicine and plants, Sanji trains for attack cuisine, Nami studies advanced weather science, Robin goes with the revolutionaries, Frankie studies Vegapunk's blueprints, Usopp trains with Heracles and learns pop greens, and Zoro humbles himself and asks Mihawk to train him. Finally, Jinbei parts from Luffy, promising to wait at Fishman Island, and Rayleigh brings Luffy to Ruskaina. There, Rayleigh explains the basics of Haki, demonstrating it against a charging elephant. He lays out that there are 3 types: the ability to sense others, observation Haki, the ability to strengthen one's body, and attacks, armament Haki, and the rare power to overwhelm others with spirit alone, Conqueror's Haki. Luffy realizes he has already encountered these powers in different forms throughout his journey thus far, but Rayleigh tells him that now he must truly learn to control them. He says that 2 years should be enough time to teach Luffy the basics of all 3. And with that, the Straw Hats spend a full 2 years apart training for the battles in the New World ahead. Luffy leaving his straw hat and card in the island's one safe place on a rock as he begins training to take over the New World. And that's the end of the Summit War Saga. Thanks for watching the channel. Don't forget to slap the subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss another update. Until next time, peace.